We're joined now on the line by Rhea. Joe is a Missouri atheist, and his MySpace is myspace.com/KS Ski Dude 1970. Joe, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on in Missouri and stem cells, and your role. You say you were a speaker.
It's called the Missouri Coalition for Life-Saving Cures. You could just go to www.missouricures.com, all one word.
Okay.
It kind of talks about what has been going on in Missouri the last 5 years, ever since stem cell research came on the forefront in 2001. There's been some politicians in our state that have been trying to ban and criminalize specifically embryonic stem cell research, and then within that, the somatic cell nuclear transfer. And not only do they want to criminalize it, they want to make anyone who would participate within the research a felon. Meaning, for instance, if Kelly donated an egg for somebody and they removed her, took her egg and removed her nucleus, and then I gave a skin cell, well, we would both be participants, and they would want to potentially have put us into jail for 15 years. Well, enough was enough, and people in Missouri got together and formed a coalition, and we had to try to amend the Constitution, and we were successful doing that.
So the Constitution said in the past, and now it says, what's the difference?
Well, it wasn't necessarily that all forms were always legal, but what this did was that it prevented these zealots like Jim Lemke and Matt Bartle in Missouri, these religious zealot representatives, to try to not write any more bills trying to ban this research. So it halted that halted them from doing that.
And now you say you had a neck injury, a paralyzation when you were younger, correct?
Correct. Yes, I broke my neck playing football.
And then now you had a recovery that people are like claiming is like because of God or something.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time I get, you thank God, bless God, you're so blessed. At 14 years old, I was really resentful of the fact that people were giving credit to a being that at that time I didn't even know that I existed in or didn't exist in, but I was thinking, hey, I'm the one that's working my ass off here. I'm the one that's going to therapy every day. I'm the one who gets out of bed. I'm the one who does this. And I don't think I'm so lucky when you get right down to it, because, you don't have to go through what I go through every day for the most part.
And so what is the recovery? I mean, where are you at now? And you were paralyzed from the neck down, right?
Correct.
And so how does it stand
medically
today?
speaking, I've made a great recovery. And the funny thing is that, people throw around the word miracle all the time. And I used to use that word, but when I started really doing my research into all of this and reading and whatnot, I don't believe it's a miracle at all. I might be an anomaly.
Right.
But I certainly do. I think that some divine intervention came in and said, okay, you're chosen. Now you can walk and do all these things, but other people are going to be quadriplegics the rest of their life.
So you can walk again.
Oh yeah, I can walk and snow ski and golf and pretty much do anything that I want.
And you were paralyzed from the neck down at one point.
I was.
Wow.
C4, C5 where the injury occurred in my neck. And for people that don't know what that means is you have 7 cervical vertebrae. I fractured the 4th and 5th and compressed my 5th.
Okay, so stem cell research would or wouldn't help you at this point?
Well, at this point, there's not enough research on whether or not that if an injection of my own stem cells in my spinal cord would benefit from me. But not every, but the majority of experts, the people that do the research, say that embryonic stem cell research will eventually one day help people with spinal cord injuries and diabetes and cancer and heart disease. And so I'm looking forward to it.
And where do you follow the stem cell, debate outside of the realm of how it pertains to Missouri as well?
Well, sure. Definitely on the national scene, it's important. Bush's only veto was for the stem cell, bill. And of course, it comes right back to religion. Why is he vetoing a bill that could help, millions and millions of people? Well, his, unfounded religious beliefs.
Yeah. That never made any sense to me. It's like completely backwards, the whole And they do the same thing with like the death penalty, you know, like these people who are so pro-life, you know, are so pro-death at the same time. It's the hypocrisy blows my mind. The fact that, you know, we can cherish this unborn life and this blastocyst, you know, but we can't cherish, you know, the people that are alive today, you know. And it's not, stem cells don't just help people, you know, like, you know, debilitating or old, like, you know, the diseases that you get with old age, you know, Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, even those diseases people get young. But I mean, it would help, you know, heart attacks and you know, somebody like yourself that was paralyzed at 14, you know. So yeah, I don't get it either, man. So have you
there's
looked
so many benefits to it, and you know, there's this new research out there that it's basically where they've eliminated the sperm in an egg. I mean, so even you have your religious beliefs, which, as we know, people are going to hold on to regardless of research and information and data. But, you know, you can take an unfertilized egg and combine it with a human skin cell and produce a patient's own stem cells, and yet they still want to think that you're creating a life. And it's absolutely insane to me. And then, you know, to have to hear that time and time again. And because I was working for the coalition and I was out on the front lines, I was unable to argue from a theistic standpoint or a non-theistic standpoint. I had to stay on point, and it was really, really difficult for me.
Yeah, the thing that really kills me about that whole issue is that the appeal to emotion that they use, like to convince people that stem cell research is wrong, you know, that you're like killing a baby, because most people don't know enough about it to realize that it's technically not even an embryo, because the embryonic stage doesn't really begin until implantation, and to get actual stem cells, like undifferentiated stem cells, that's the pre-implantation period, you know, and you know, technically is not really even an embryo. You know, when they use the word, you know, embryonic stem cell, they're really just alluding to the fact of what it could become potentially, but isn't yet, and just trying to put the picture in somebody's brain of a little baby.
That's absolutely correct, Kelly. They, you know, and you hit it right on the head. Before it implants into the uterus, before that time, it's not an embryo, and you can look that up and see that. And basically, and you said undifferentiated cells, there's still cells that can turn into any other cell within the body, and that's only at that stage. And that's why scientists are so excited about those. But in Missouri, they would literally hand out at our county fairs little baby fetuses, plastic baby fetuses, and say, this is what you're killing. They would have bumper stickers with that on it. Basically, what they're actually trying to get to, as we believe, is that abortion. They're trying to get to Roe v. Wade. And if they could have won in Missouri and say, look, people think that an egg is an unborn life, well, unfortunately, they lost at this point.
Do the laws in Missouri vary from other laws in the country right now as to how stem cell research can be conducted?
Now we have on the books that it will remain legal. Before it wasn't any different, but they were trying to. Senator Bartle and Representative Lemke, and if you look these guys up, you'll see they're very religious, and that they've been trying to pass bills for 5 years to try to ban it. Well, there's a ripple effect with that in Missouri. Missouri has the second largest buildings in the world with the Jim Virginia Stowers. It's the Stowers Research Institute. And, you know, there's so much money that could be coming into Missouri for the biotech industry, creating revenue jobs, that scientists in the state are leaving because of the threat and the fear that they may one day be considered a felon. Well, you wouldn't want to work in Missouri if you have that hanging over your head. So there's all that for 4 or 5 years in a row. We were losing the best scientists. We're losing money, not to mention it's slowing down the likelihood of finding a cure or some kind of treatment from stem cell research. So that's why we got together and said enough is enough. But currently in Missouri, I know this is a long answer, I'm sorry, it is now in the Constitution that all forms of stem cell research will remain legal.
Okay, and then that's also nationwide, correct?
Correct. There's no law on the books nationally saying that you can't do this research. They just won't fund it.
But on a national level, they will fund a few research
Lines
institutions.
already
correct?
created.
So it's like, if I remember correctly, it was 6 institutions that the government will fund to work on stem cell research. Is that correct?
I think that is. I'm not sure. I think that sounds about right.
Now, I don't know if you've done any of the research in this realm, but do you have any idea how far behind we are compared to some of the other countries who have, been able to put more money into stem cell research?
Well, far behind. We're definitely behind because we're not doing what we can. And so you look at China and Australia's doing research, Europe, and some like England's doing it, and other countries are doing it. So we're definitely behind the 8 ball. I mean, what the sad thing is that Americans shouldn't have to leave their country to go somewhere else to get this research, and that's really where we're at right now.
Yeah, and in fact, have you considered leaving the country to get stem cells?
Well, I would only do that once it's perfected. Fortunately, I'm not completely paralyzed anymore, so I'm not going to just stick something in my neck until I know for sure that it's going to work.
Right.
Or somebody else might be, if they're a complete quadriplegic, they might be more willing to take that opportunity.
I mean, I've read stories that that people have left the country because it would save their life. Even to head to like the Dominican Republic or something like that, like Guatemala. You get like better stem cell care in Guatemala and stem cell injections than you can in this country. And forgive me if it's not Guatemala, maybe like Honduras. Or, it's like some crap country though. It's like
exactly.
Sorry, Guatemalans.
And the sad thing is here is that the reason behind it that it's delayed, is that the money's not going into it, is religion, belief in a God that doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's really a shame how much religion affects, politics and science. And I mean, it's been inherent in Christianity since the very beginning. I mean, look at the Dark Ages. Hello. I mean, they have been actively opposing scientific progress for 2,000 years now.
Yeah, it's just
almost in everything that there is. In vaccinations, they were against vaccinations. They were against organ donation and transplants. It's just in the last 100 years you can look at the thing. They wanted to ostracize Jonas Salk for putting the polio, disease within your body and discovering the vaccine. I mean, it's just crazy what they've been trying to do.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense either. I mean, it's backwards, like why would you not want to save somebody's life? And I mean, they have to lie in order to, like this handing out of little fetuses and whatnot, they have to, it's like completely backwards. Like their religion's supposed to be about, like they have honesty embedded in their religion, and they have to lie in order to not allow somebody to have their life saved.
Yeah,
it's completely backwards to what you would think the Christian message should be if, people actually believe this stuff. I think this is a good example of actually what Daniel Dennett says is like people believe in belief, but they don't really believe. They don't truly believe. If people truly believed, you would see them like jumping off of buildings, just praying to God that they would, be able to land safely. But, people don't do shit like that,
right.
because they know deep down inside this stuff's not true. It just, they need to feel better about their belief system by doing things like ruining other people's lives and in fact being directly responsible for their death because they thwarted the research that could have saved them.
It's true. I mean, I was on a radio show last October. I'm trying to think. It was in Springfield, Missouri. And it was a Christian right show, and I didn't really know. They didn't tell me that it was that. I basically walked into the Hornets Den, and this guy, said, how can you be associated with something tantamount to murder? I think you walk with the devil. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. And I'm like, look, all I'm here to do is to make sure that people have the same rights in Missouri as every other American, rights to be able to access treatments and cures that are allowed under federal law. And you're the one who's trying to take that away from us. And we battled for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, how dare you try to save people's lives? I mean, so satanic.
You're just
seriously. I mean, how dare you try to save people's lives? That's so satanic.
Yeah, it's just a terrible thing. So.
Yeah, well, it's really ironic because if these people really believed, like, their whole argument that, well, this is, it's up to God to, heal these people or save these people or whatever, then you know what? Next time you get into like a car accident, don't go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Just pray about it.
Yeah.
It's up to God to save your life. That's
exactly it. That's exactly the sort of thing that I'm talking about with believe and belief. Like they don't, if they really truly believe, they just sit in their car and pray.
Yeah. So you don't rely on the science that you hate and adamantly oppose when you or somebody in your family needs it. And then you won't be a total hypocrite.
Yeah, that would be a good law. Anybody against stem cell research can't visit a doctor.
Let's do them like this. And you were hitting
that
right
would cure
on
the health system.
Car crashes, that all of us at some point get into a car crash, and that's where most people suffer spinal cord injuries. To a Christian, ask them if they have a child and say, are you going to tell me that if your child breaks their neck and is paralyzed from the neck down and has to use a respirator and they can't take care of themselves for the rest of their life, and there's a cure from stem cell research right there, you're going to honestly look in your child's eyes and say, no, I am not going to give you this. And if you do that, then you're not fit to be a parent.
Yeah, even just as bad is, countless people out there right now who are opposed stem cell research who will need the research. The Alzheimer's and the Parkinson's that these people are going to get with old age, and there's not going to be a cure for them. And I hope that if there is, they don't get it. They shouldn't.
You should have to sign off now. Like any potential stem cell research, like if you oppose it now, like
you can't be the beneficiary of
your
it.
right to have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and then if God really does indeed exist, then they'll be in good favor. But that's not true. And it's just, people would be afraid to do that, because that's a great way of putting it. Just sign a little petition, say, look, I'm not going to partake in any of this research in the future when these cures are discovered, and see how many of them backtrack on that.
Yeah. I don't want to be part of a God that doesn't like us saving people's lives,
Yeah.
I just don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. And just you mentioned that when you went on that radio show that they, essentially called you like a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Just to even think that you could turn the, use of a clump of 5 to 7 cells into murder.
Just to put it into perspective.
Absolutely absurd. Which that 5 to 7 cell
How big
clump,
is that, Kel?
Well, it's smaller than, it's like a dot. Like if you took your pen and made a little dot, that's about the size it is. It's absolutely ridiculous that these people want to use that as like their argument against stem cell research. And that 5 to 7 cell clump has less than a 50% chance of survival anyway. Right. The vast majority of fertilized eggs are aborted before women even know they're pregnant. It happens all the time.
Over 50% of them, you're right.
Yeah. And with that statistic, of course, God, if he exists, is the largest provider of abortions in the history of humankind.
Yeah.
Nobody has killed more babies than God, if he exists.
Yeah.
Furthermore, he's responsible for the death of every creature on this planet.
Right. Well, their line of argument, their line of reasoning is that clump of cells in a petri dish could potentially become a human life. Well, then you could say every time you scratch your nose, or every time you scratch your head, those flakes of cells that fall off could potentially become a human being. So we're basically committing a holocaust every time we scratch our head.
Sam Harris, let me in fact play that sound file from Sam right now. I've got a 4-minute audio file of Sam bringing up that point. I'll play it and then we'll talk about it for a sec. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'll give you a case in point that I brought up briefly yesterday. The fact of stem cell research, as many people in this room no doubt are aware, stem cell research is one of the most promising lines in biology to generate medical therapies. And it is not being funded at the federal level for reasons that are religious, but because we have this idea that, based on rather vague notions of theology, that in every fertilized ovum there is a soul. And you can't privilege the interests of one soul over another, even if one is in a petri dish and the other is in a man with Parkinson's disease. A lot has been said in this conference about science not being able to answer questions of morality. Well, I think this is a question of morality that science has answered. If you look at the details, if you look at the human embryos that are destroyed in stem cell research, what is a 3-day-old human embryo? It is a collection of 150 cells. That may sound like a lot of cells to lay people. It does, but there are 100,000 cells in the brain of a fly. Now, it seems to me, if our concern is about suffering in this universe, it is rather obvious that we should be more concerned about killing flies than about killing 3-day-old human embryos. Now, this may sound like a very provocative claim. I would argue that it shouldn't, if you look at the details. Now, many people, of course, will argue, well, the difference between a fly and a 3-day-old human embryo is that a 3-day-old human embryo is a potential human being. This runs into problems. Every cell in your body, given the right manipulations, every cell with a nucleus, is now a potential human being. I mean, literally, every time you scratch your nose, you have committed a holocaust of potential human beings. So the argument for a cell's potential doesn't get you anywhere. But let's take this a little bit further. Let's say we granted that every 3-day-old human embryo has a soul worthy of our moral concern. There are other problems that await this description. First of all, embryos at this stage can split into what we call identical twins. Now, is this a case of one soul splitting into 2 souls? Embryos at this stage can fuse into what we call a chimera. Many people in this room could have developed in this way. Now, I suspect that there are theologians trying to figure out what has happened to the extra-human soul in such a case. It's time we realize that this arithmetic of souls doesn't make any sense. It's intellectually indefensible, but it is morally indefensible, given that these notions really are prolonging the scarcely endurable misery of tens of millions of human beings. And because of the respect we accord religious faith, not even just people of faith, even advocates of stem cell research accord the faith respect, we can't have this dialogue in the way that we should. So I submit to you that if you think that the interests of a blastocyst, a 3-day-old human embryo, just may trump the interests of a little girl with spinal cord injury or a person with full body burns, your moral intuitions have been obscured by religious metaphysics. And this is a kind of blindness that is very well subscribed in our society. And it's a blindness that goes by another name. It goes by the name of religious faith. And we have been cowed into respecting it.
Yeah, and there's Sam Harris on the issue. So, but yeah, that's a pretty popular quote. And he's right. You know, every time you scratch your nose, you're committing like a virtual Holocaust. He says, you know, every time you move in your seat, you know, you're killing hundreds of thousands of cells. But yeah,
they're arguing the potential of human life. So that's the very thing that they're saying, that, you know, any cell can become a human being with the right manipulation and the right research and the right, you know, things to go into it. So, you know, here's a little thing that it was a great way to pose the question to you find out. You have a research facility with embryonic stem cells on one side. On the other side of the research facility, you have a child daycare, for instance, whatever the scenario may be. The building, you know, catches on fire. You have, you know, 25 petri dishes full of embryonic stem cells, and you have children on the other side. You only have so much time to save. Who are you going to save? Well, it's a no-brainer. You go right to the people who are actually born and alive, and the people whose lives you can actually save.
I also have a clip from Michael J. Fox talking about stem cell research and explaining how he feels about the president vetoing the federally funded research, and that a large majority of Americans support the research, but that the bill passed through Congress, you know, easily with bipartisan support. And then, of course, the president used his first veto ever to kill the legislation. So here's Michael J. Fox's a two minute clip here. I'll play this.
personally, I'd love to see these things solved in the next 20 years. I regret the loss of 6 years and 5 years, and that where real progress could have been made. And I find it frustrating that the president will use his first veto of his time in office to thwart this research. It just seems a shame to me. I mean, we're certainly respectful of those who oppose this research and their reasoning for it, but they do represent a minority. And I think that to make a choice to protect millions of cells that are going to be destroyed over protecting millions of living and soon-to-be living human beings and citizens of this country it's hard to get around that. I mean, I can't quite understand the reasoning behind it. People really want this, and they've considered it, and they've prayed on it, and they've thought about it, and I think you have to trust the American people, our scientists, our institutions, our facilities to really do the right thing and lead the way with this, because it's going to happen anyway. So why doesn't it happen with American oversight and federal funding, and with a enthusiastic and well thought out approach? Since when does America wait for somebody else to figure it out? I mean, we should figure it out. We've been blessed with the resources and the intelligence and the spirit and the energy to tackle these kind of problems, and we're all set to do it. And we need leadership from the top to spur us on to do it. And if I can add my voice to it, and for whatever reason get a little more attention, then I'm happy to do that. I see it as a responsibility and a privilege.
What do you think people can do to help change the situation that we're in right now? Is there anything other than just, voting and talking about it? I mean, anything that we can support organizations?
I would definitely contact your state representative with an email and keep saying, look, we're in favor of this research. We want to fund this research. We need to keep doing that. Keep putting pressure on our politicians, because right now that's where we can get the money to, get it funded. Bush, obviously we got to get him out of office, and then hopefully the next president, whomever it will be in favor of this research, and we can go from there. But you're on the state level, there are states out there that are battling to try to keep this legal. Missouri was one of those, and we had over 4 million votes, and we only won by 50,000, and that's how much the religious right has an influence. And all the polls for the entire year of the campaign, we were up 70-30, and then we come down and we win barely because of their religious push. They bring in Alan Keyes. He comes out and says, God hates people in favor of this research.
Really don't like Alan Keyes.
No, not at all. I mean, and we had religious leaders on our side. John Danforth. I mean, we had people that were in favor of this, but it didn't matter. You had the strong Catholic, Catholics were against this. The Southern Baptists were against this, and they brought out their smear campaign, and it really showed me how much influence they still have over an issue that could save people's lives.
Well, look, we're going to let you go, but I hope that you keep in touch with us and use our community, rationalresponders.com forums to keep in touch with other people who you can kind of bring into the fray here. And if there's anything that anybody can do that you're aware of, whether it's at the state level or the national level, let's talk about it at our website. So
sounds good. Hey, I appreciate the time. I really do.
Yeah, thanks so much for talking to us, Joe. So once again, it's Joe Rhea. You can check him out at myspace.com/KSSkidude1970. And is there any other website related to stem cell research that you can promote right here?
Well, how about I just tell them to go to my website?
Okay.
It's joerhea.com as well.
All right. So it's JOERHEA. Okay, JOERHEA.com. Check out joerhea.com. Thanks so much, Joe, for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Brian Kelly. Hey, one thing real quick I wanted to say, congratulations to you guys on the debate against Ray and Kirky. I think you guys did fantastic. It's really frustrating to debate people like that, and I felt your pain, but I thought you guys represented us very well, so thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, man. We'll take a brief commercial break and